continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilmember Spar.
Here.
Councilmember Thacker.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Councilmember Mansour.
Present.
Councilmember Jones.
Present.
Councilmember Perry.
Here.
Councilmember Reesner.
Let the record show all 7 members of council are present. Minutes from November 6, 2023, regular and committee of the whole meetings were distributed, as well as November 13, 2023, special council meeting. Are there any questions, corrections on those minutes? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved as presented. We are now under committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilmember Reesner.
No report, Madam President.
Law and Community Planning, Councilmember Mansour.
No report, Madam President.
Materials and Equipment, Councilmember Jones.
No report at this time, Madam President.
Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilmember Perry.
No report, Madam President.
Recreation and Public Property, Councilmember Wilkins.
No report, Madam President.
Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers, Councilmember Thacker.
No report, Madam President.
And Economic Development and Downtown Planning, Councilmember Spar.
No report, Madam President.
Thank you. Does anyone see the need to schedule a committee of the whole meeting? All right, we are now under reports of the officers. Her Honor, Mayor Don Iannantuono.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. This is the last of the 3 meetings to go over the 2024 budget. Tonight, we will cover Public Works and the Engineering Department. Before I have that report, I'd like to go through some items of interest. Last week's Third Thursday Sip and Shop event was a huge success. We had great weather and it was well attended. The windows and the wonderful light decorations were all absolutely beautiful. Thank you, everyone who had a hand in the successful night in downtown Tiffin. Liz and I were out and around the entire time. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed that. The Christmas holiday lights at the fairgrounds are now open through December 23rd. Their hours are from Friday from 6 to 9, Saturday from 6 to 9, and Sunday from 6 to 8. And if you are in line past closing time, you will be permitted through. The cost is $5 per vehicle. City Hall offices will be closed Thanksgiving Day the 23rd and Friday the 24th. We hope to do a ribbon cutting for the new Ella Street Bridge on Tuesday the 28th at 4 p.m. And our city engineer assures me that, yes, we are ready for that. So we will be having a ribbon cutting. Keep that in mind. I was asked to be on Channel 11 on Monday the 27th for their 4 p.m. segment, which is perfect timing for me to plug the upcoming Kris Kringle Mark on Friday the 1st and Saturday the 2nd. Speaking of the Kris Kringle Mark, this 2-day event kicks off with the tree lighting on the courthouse lawn at 5:15 p.m. Friday the 1st, and the next day kicks off the Kiwanis Club of Tiffin annual Christmas parade starting at 10 a.m. Saturday morning. So that's a time change for them. My office has been working on training packets to assist with onboarding all new personnel starting on January 1st, 2024. This packet has been sent to existing returning members and all of the newly elected. Please go over this packet on December 11th at 5:30 p.m. We have a special meeting scheduled for the second reading of the budget. Since this will be a very brief meeting, I am asking everyone that received this packet to attend or stay after to run through this information. It is my intent to do everything I can these next few weeks to assist in getting everyone up to speed as quickly as possible before taking office January 1st, 2024. Mayor-elect Lee Wilkinson and I have already been working together to ensure a smooth transition. Lee has been joining me at meetings and learning all he can. I know he will do a great job for Tiffin. So having run through those things quickly so we keep moving. Moving on to budget. And so to make sure I say it this time, page 25 of number 77 is where we're starting with Public Works. And Brandon Berner is here with us this evening if you have questions. Equipment is finally at where it needs to be in the Public Works Department, and leasing to own a new tree stump remover. He's splitting his wages between 2 accounts, and through various sources, he's reducing requests by $400,000. And so once again, we've got that up. Again, I keep liking to plug that the bridge was totally paid for without taking out a loan. And then Brandon, this picture, there he is. So Brandon, any?
I can't remember. That's the first I heard that.
Well, Dale, it came from Dale Thornton always saying he was my hammer. And I said, well, then what's that make Brandon? So I call Brandon my jackhammer. So does the tough stuff for me. And so got some fun things up there for him. So any questions for Brandon on his budget on page 25? Brandon, is there anything you hope to share, or you're hoping that if you stay quiet, they won't ask any questions?
You know, I could go either way. If I'm being honest, like let's keep going. But I will. The notes hit it on the head. I will say that the mayor noted one thing, and that would be reflected in the salary ordinance as well. For this, moving on to the next, is that my salary will now be pulled from both half street, half sewer. Traditionally, the superintendent and the assistant superintendent pulled from different funds. Which was more heavily taxing on the street because we didn't have an assistant. So it didn't make any sense. With no intention of getting an assistant anytime soon, I've split mine between the two to even it out, as well as the engineers have come out of the street fund, which was a move when the gas tax came in to try to leverage gas tax against some of this work, but we've since done away with that in this round as well. So that's big news for our street funds. We are getting back to a spot where we want to be. In terms of the amount of carryover, and our equipment has, our fleet has gone from almost shameful to very proud fleet out there. And so that's and thanks in many parts to most of you being around here and your predecessors. It's a big deal for us. We had a lot of stuff that needed replaced, and I got to say I'm forever thankful to the residents of the city of Tiffin and to this body for approving and getting us where we need to be active. And that goes to the sewer side as well. Several big projects coming up on that as well. We'll have too. So again, thank you, and we're looking pretty healthy for next year.
When I specifically mentioned the tree stump remover because they were renting one that just wasn't doing the job, and we just couldn't keep doing that. So that's why we went ahead and purchased leasing it to own it.
Any questions?
Okay. Hopefully Matt will be as lucky as president. Okay, moving into engineering. Additional grants coming in. As you've noticed, Matt's had a lot of those coming in. So this is page 17 for engineering out of 77. Matt is a rock star when it comes to going after grants, and ODOT is a very good friend of his now. So we appreciate that. Staff has continued to attain and update their licensing. Matt has all kinds of initials after his name. And they've also gone after certifications as needed. So any questions for Matt? Or Matt, is there anything you'd like to share with them?
Sure. So kind of the only thing on the page 17 that I want to cover, kind of piggybacking off what Brandon said in regards to a general fund. As he said previously, both myself and the assistant city engineer were paid 1/3 street fund, 1/3 sewer fund, 1/3 general fund. They took us off of the street fund like he had said. So in this proposed budget, we are now 1/2 general fund, 1/2 sewer fund. So that's the only thing I wanted to cover on page 17. But with all the projects we have upcoming, I just wanted to quickly go through some of those larger dollar items in the budget on other pages just to provide council and the public with that update. So if you flip to page 29 of 77, that is Fund 213, State Highway Improvement Fund. So that is a restricted fund where those funds can only be used on state routes within our city. You'll see there under 213, 382, 5350 engineering, there's $100,000 budgeted for next year. That is for consulting services for the West Market Street Safety Study that we had previously discussed in legislations currently going through City Council. Under 213, 382, 5725, that's Brandon's $100,000 that he plans to use for the traffic signal correct at Melmore and Circular Street. Jumping further down on that page, Fund 215, that's the 1/4% income tax for public streets, otherwise known as the road and bridge levy. In there, there is engineering services with $400,000 budgeted. That $400,000 is in there to include consulting services for the State Route 53 project that we're moving forward with the design phase for next year. That's the full reconstruction of 53 from Hall Street to Tome Street, the resurfacing of 53 north of Tome Street to the city corporation limits, as well as the South Sandusky Street culvert that currently has the legislation being read by City Council, and any remaining costs that we have for the Ellis Street Bridge project. So as the mayor said, we have a ribbon cutting next Tuesday. Construction will be substantially complete by the end of the month, but there will be some minor items that will carry into December. So we should have some consulting costs that will probably carry into the beginning of next year. So that's what that 400,000 is for. On the next page, on page 30, you'll see there's 1,400,000 for street paving. So that is to cover next year's street paving project, as well as $100,000 to pay for that OPWC 0% loan that we utilized for this year's street paving. So we got a $500,000 loan this year. We're planning to pay that back over the next 5 years while we have this guaranteed levy funds come in. We're going to pay $100,000 a year over the next 5 years and completely wipe that debt off the plate before we take potentially the grant or the levy back to the voters. So the 1.4 is 1.3 million in new street resurfacing next year with $100,000 for that loan payment. 215, 381, 5743. The 1,327,000 that's still in the budget there is to cover the cost of the remainder of the invoices for the construction of the Ellis Street Bridge project. That number will be reduced by the time that you approve the budget. That number is what the total was remaining at the time that we started developing the budget, but we continuously pay invoices on a monthly basis. So that'll be an adjustment at the time that it's not 1.327 million currently. It's continuing to decrease. Next, if you flip to page 41 of 77, it'll be Fund 275, abbreviated safety grant fund. You'll see there's $50,000 budgeted under engineering services. That is for the design of the Sixes Corners project. That's part of the Big 53 project. The grant that we got for the abbreviated safety funds is paying for 100% of the design. So that is a special fund to account for that project. The $50,000 is an expense, but there will be a $50,000 worth of revenue coming in to offset that with the grant. Next, if you would like to flip to page 66 of 77. At the top of the page, you have 552, 354, 5749. It says HSTS. That's the Household Sewage Treatment Project, or otherwise known as the Septic System Replacement Project. That is the local share currently of $1,250,000 for that project. We are hopeful that we can further reduce that amount. Just found out last week, and I attended a webinar, there is a second round of funding available from the same grant source that we previously received grant funding from. So previously we received $390,000 for the project. At that time, it was 2021, I believe, when we received that funding. It was supposed to be a $520,000 project. Inflation really kicked in, the scope of the project changed, and next thing you knew, we had a $1.5 million project. So the state has identified that, and they're actually promoting communities like Tiffin to resubmit grant applications because to try to further reduce that gap on locals to ensure that the projects that they're funding is moving forward. So I will be submitting a grant application to that program for an additional $750,000 request. So I'm hopeful that that $1,250,000 substantially decreases that minus $750,000. Next, if you would like to flip to page 69. So this is where we have special funds for all the upcoming sewer projects for the long-term control plan. You'll see we have Fund 563. That's the early action 24 and 30 project. So that's the sewer project that actually started construction last week. and they're currently digging down around the Columbian softball field. So that project, we actually received $4 million in principal forgiveness from WPCLF. So that is what that $4 million reflects. At the end of the day, we have, I think, around $160,000 in room for change orders on that project to still complete that project at $0 on the city. So we had a $4 million grant. The construction cost, the design cost, and the inspection cost at this time is like $3.85 million. So we're going to walk away with that project, no cost. That's what that $4 million reflects. It reflects the $4 million grant as an expense, which will be subsidized by the $4 million in revenue when we request reimbursements. Moving on to page 70. You'll see Fund 565, 566, and 567. That is for the EQ Basin project, the Main Interceptor project, and the Benner Interceptor project. Put a placeholder on each of those projects for $2 million. We're still in the planning phase. Council approved, and I've given you updates on the costs that we were incurring for the planning contracts for each of those three projects. We're not complete with the planning contracts yet, so we haven't even started negotiating the next phase, which is detailed design. So I'm hopeful that that $2 million that I put on each of them covers the remainder of the costs on the contract that we're in now when it carries over into next year, in addition to the costs that we will incur on those projects for the next contract for detailed design. Those three, we will be pursuing and having WPCLF loans to subsidize those costs. So again, it's going to be an expense out substituted by the revenue coming in for the reimbursement for the loan. Moving on to the next page, and the last that I'll cover on page 71. Fund 568, the inflow reduction 9 through 13 and 15 project. Again, $2 million placeholder, same explanation that we had for the Main Interceptor and the Benner Interceptor. And then Fund 569 is the $390,000 grant that we've already received for the septic system project that I'm hopeful that we can add another $750,000 to that line next year if we have a successful application. So that's all I had, pending any questions from council.
Matt, would you like to share with them the cute story about our little friend that's going to be at the ribbon cutting Tuesday?
You want me to, Liz, or do you want to hold off till you post it tomorrow?
Your discretion, sir.
Okay, so again, we encourage everyone to come out to the ribbon cutting next Tuesday for the Ellis Street Bridge. I think anybody that's listening tonight should get the advance notice on that. But we have asked a 5-year-old, Elliot Bogger, to cut the ribbon on behalf of the city. He was out on the site pretty much every day through the construction with his mom. Often he was wearing a hard hat. He had a construction vest, a tool belt. The contractors immediately noticed him, started giving him stickers for his hard hat, gave him tools after the project, things like that. He went back to school. He was very discouraged because he was losing out on all the daily updates on the bridge. So his mom still brings him down there, once or twice a week, and the contractors still take time out of their day to come up and talk to him. He really brought a sense of joy to the project. Construction projects can be stressful at times, things like that. So we've very much appreciated him coming to the project, kind of lightening the mood. So thought there was no better option than to ask him and invite him back to cut the ribbon next week.
So cute.
So tomorrow, we're going to have a press release going out notifying the public, given the background of the story, and asking, everyone, encouraging everyone to come out and attend that milestone event next week.
Mr. Engineer Watson, I drove down there today, and of course, sidewalks closed, couldn't get close to it. On the ribbon cutting, is going to be walkover only, or is traffic going to be driving?
Yeah, so it'll be walkover. I would encourage everyone to park probably at the middle school.
Okay.
It'll be at 4 p.m. It will be substantially completed, but it's not going to be totally completed by that date. Is still the intent to have the road open by the that Friday, which I believe is December 1st. There's going to be some small items that have to get taken care of beyond that date, but we are working with the contractor to figure out what the best plan is for each individual scope of them remaining items. So there could be potential days where you might have a closure from 9 to 2, so get everybody to work, get everybody to the school, maybe close it down for a few hours in the middle of the day, but make sure it's open before the end of the school, just like we did before the project started. Or they might be able to flag traffic for different items, but there will still need to be some sidewalks poured on the north side or the south side of the bridge beyond the ribbon cutting date. But Wednesday, they'll be pouring the rest of the decorative railing. And the bridge is able to be driven on now by construction equipment, so it's just getting striping completed. It's already been paved, just, doing the touch-ups, moving all the fill material from the river, things like that. So we're there. It's great to see. The contractor's been great. They really have, just listen to that story with the young kid. They're taking the time out of their day to work with him. And it's been a good experience all the way around.
And just side issue, contractor walked by. I said, I see you're working on the railing there. And he called it, was it Texas rail was the term?
Yeah, so that's
Very decorative and looked very
yeah,
nice.
that's the style. A lot of communities use it, but the concrete railing with the openings that we have on all of our bridges is referred to as a Texas rail. So,
Okay.
yep.
Didn't know that.
Other questions?
Just out of curiosity, obviously we're just finishing up Ella. Any idea on the next major bridge that we're going to have to tackle?
Not really. Bridges don't qualify for any sort of federal funding till they're rated a 4 or less on the scaling system of 1 to 9. Right now, most of our worst of our bridges are at 6s, so they have to decline, by 2 points on that scale. So I think we're in pretty good shape, and any bridge that we'd have to replace in the future would be something over Rock Creek. So the Hush Street Bridge and the Ella Street Bridge are the only 2 river bridges that we have the responsibility for full replacement. So we're sitting in very good situation moving forward, because I think the Hush Street Bridge is just a little over 20 years since that has been replaced. So we're sitting pretty good there. We will have the Sandusky Street culvert that I mentioned to do next year. Then all of our culverts that are under active roadways are all in pretty good shape. So there's going to be a significant amount of funding moving forward in street resurfacing and street repair now that we have the cost for the bridges and the culverts pretty much off of our books. And that's why you see we promoted next year's street paving list of 23 roads in the base bid with 1 road on the alternate. And that's reflective to getting all that high dollar bridge costs and culvert cost off the books.
Awesome. Thank you.
City Administrator.
Yes, thank you. And just a reminder for folks, and I know we've had a couple people bring it up, obviously with Ella Street Bridge getting taken care of this year, and the smaller bridge the year before, with all of that heavy truck traffic and everything else that was going on out there, it didn't make sense for us to do that paving this year. So Ella Street is on the paving list for next year that was proposed.
That's correct.
And also, Matt, a lot of times we get snarky comments, I guess we'll put it as, where you'll do paving and then it gets tore up and things like that. Do you want to explain how careful you really are about checking on that to make sure we know when the gas is going to be there and the water company's going to be there? Because you do have that planned out and you do watch that. And
Yeah, and you just put that sense of fear in each one of them utility companies, and then you don't have to worry about that. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that too. But we have requested 5-year plans from each of them. We have received from Aqua and from Columbia Gas 5-year plans on top of the amount of sewer work that we have going on in the future is astronomical as well from the utility side. So we have, like I've presented before, a spreadsheet It has every block of every street broken down on that spreadsheet with columns for, Aqua projects, columns for Columbia Gas projects. We also track street paving in a GIS mapping format. So we utilize all that each year. Before we present the list to City Council, we send our street paving list out to all the private utility companies and say, hey, one last shot. This is what we're paving. If you have any comments, we can adjust now. If not, you're not touching that road for a minimum of 5 years after we paved it. The only problem we had the last year was obviously it was hard to plan Omnifiber, a new utility that popped up, wants to do a complete install of their infrastructure throughout the entire city at one time, right? So how do you pre-plan that? So it took a lot of effort there. We, really forced them real heavily to get into the roads that we were paving this year in advance. And even if they weren't installing their full infrastructure, anything that they had under the roadway needed to get done prior to us paving. And anything that any utility company might have to dig up within the first 5 years, I set that as the threshold, but there's always emergencies. There's things that you can't plan. We do now require them to backfill with a CDF material, a low strength mortar mix, kind of a version of a concrete, instead of just backfilling with stone, to try to promote less settlement of their trenches so that when they pave them back in, you're not like, oh, we know the water company was there 5 years ago, because every 10 feet down the road, you have a settlement over like a 2x2 square. So a lot of effort going in there, but I'd say probably, Brandon would probably agree, the most success we've had is just kind of instilling that fear and making them know that we're on top of them and don't touch our roads because our residents are paying an extra 0.25%, and we have a plan here and you're going to work with us, or we're just going to tell you no. And we'll fight you till as far as we can take it and delay your project if we have to.
Yes, I'd forgotten about all this. Actually, with Omnifiber, it was really ugly at first. Brandon's even telling them their guys are out there not wearing anything reflective at night. They're all over the place. They're causing damage everywhere. Our fire trucks are going out because they're causing problems. And Matt got it organized to actually work with them. And actually some of the utility companies were kind of snotty with them on one of the Zoom meetings because they weren't doing what they're expected to do and they're trying to get by with stuff. And the reason why I bring that up is because Matt just put his foot down and said, I'm not issuing permits unless you guys protect our residents for 2 years, I think it is, on our laterals.
Yeah, so we basically put a halt on that project until they got their ducks in a row, and then we required them to attend a progress meeting every 2 weeks, and that we coordinated and ran the progress meeting, but not just Omnifiber was involved, but Columbia Gas, Aqua was invited, and we brought all the players to the table. And then I've also been a big advocate. Omnifiber's going into a lot of other similar communities, so I've been talking to a lot of other city engineers and telling them, what we went through so that they can be successful when they get there as well.
Well, it was kind of funny. They still try to circumvent Matt. I think it was really early on. The head guy called me and he said, Mayor, let's talk. You know how engineers are. You and I talk turkey here. And I'd already listened to Matt. I've already heard what Matt said about, I told them they're not getting permits. And I said, whatever my city engineer said is what you're going to do. We're not changing from that. Good. He's not issuing a permit unless he passes what you're doing. Oh, okay. So then I warned Dale Thornton, who was city administrator at the time of this conversation. Well, they tried Dale too. And so Dale told him the same thing. And so they got the message finally. And it's been a little better. We still have a few issues, but they have been very good, though, yes, with responding to issues in the community. So it's gotten a lot better, and a lot to do with Matt sticking to it and not letting them get by with it.
If I may too, Mayor, when Matt gets done beating him with the stick, then he has a carrot getting the stick and working well with those companies. So Tiffin has a great relationship both in the planning phases and in the execution phases with a lot of these contractors that you don't normally see. So it's not always doom and gloom for someone coming into town. But for someone coming out of town, if you're willing to have a good relationship with us, you have a real good experience here as a contractor, and we hear that even from everyone from our utility contractors to the railroad to whoever we deal with.
Yep, we call him the jackhammer, but he's actually very diplomatic when he needs to be. Isn't that right, Brandon? That's why we love Brandon. Okay, anything else for them? Thank you both for coming in.
Guys.
I appreciate all you do, and great job on all the grants. And Brandon, great job on keeping us safe and keeping everything repaired. And also appreciate, most people didn't hear about Public Works at all during that fire that happened in downtown Tiffin, and Public Works did step up and get the roads closed and kept traffic moving, and so we appreciate all that Public Works do. And they do so much more that people don't even realize that they're doing, with emptying trash all the time downtown, getting ready for parades all the time on off hours. They're called in when the farmer's market had an electrical issue. Public Works is unsung heroes around here. People don't realize what all they are doing, and we really appreciate what Public Works do too. So Brandon, thank you also. Okay, so that concludes my report.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you two can leave if you want.
Thank you, everyone.
Clerk of Council, Ann Forrest. Thank you. Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
Madam President, I have the financial report for the month of October 2023. Total receipts for the month were $4,313,586.16. Total expenses for the month were $4,783,746.85. The general fund unencumbered balance is $6,103,243.03. Income tax receipts for October 2023 were $1,192,237.17. Total annual increase in income tax collections for October 2023 when compared to October 2022 was $63,993.76. Year-to-date income tax receipts are up 0.22%. A 0.25% portion of income tax receipts that was transferred into Fund 215 for public streets for October 2023 was $147,682.25. The unexpended balance for all funds is $40,207,142.65, which is the same as the bank balances for the same time period. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Questions for the Finance Director? Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Madam President. Looking over these reports, and I just want the community to know that we look at them ahead of time, but two things jumped out at me, and I'm not trying to put Finance Director on the spot, but General Fund 101, line item 4,600, it said we collected, percent collected was 126% year-to-date. And I wonder how we can collect 26 more than we need to ahead of time, and that would be too easy. And then on line item 4,600, investment income, it looked like year-to-date we took in 252% of collected whatever it is. So could you give me a ballpark answer on how we're well over collections year-to-date?
Are you looking at the month-to-date fund report? Where are you looking?
I was looking on your monthly, 48 pages, 102 pages. I don't think I brought it with me, or I'm looking at it electronically.
I don't have that with me. I can get that for you.
Okay. Could we discuss it next meeting?
Sure.
And I'll give you a heads up. I just didn't have time this time. All right.
Councilmember Reesner.
I move to accept the Finance Director's reports and bank reconciliation month ending October 2023.
Thank you. There's a motion to accept the Finance Director's report and bank reconciliation for the month of October. Is there a second? Councilmember Mansour.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you. Director of Law, Brent T. Howard.
Yes, thank you. One item, good news for the city. The city hired a city prosecutor to start January 1st, 2024. His name is Aaron Bates. He is a graduate of Notre Dame Law School. He has 5 years' experience as a prosecutor doing similar type of prosecution, similar type of cases from South Dakota. He will start earlier than the 1st. As you may remember, we have a contract with Seneca County, the county prosecutor's office. They are providing we pay them to provide prosecution of municipal court cases. And Aaron is going to start, I think, in a week or so with the county, either as a temporary employee or a contractor. And so he'll get a lot of experience and guidance from the prosecutors in that office. So I think that's a good thing. He's very eager to get started, great attitude, nice person. I think he will fit very well in the city. For budget purposes, it's really the same as what we had presented to you with the other prosecutor we're expecting to start at the first of the year, which means that the second year rate, there are 3 rates for pay. We are starting him at the second year rate, and the benefits will be the same also. So there won't be any budget adjustment. When you see the budget when you introduce that ordinance, there won't be any changes necessary. There was a possibility that might have happened, but he fits in exactly where we had the prior prosecutor. So all good. Looking forward to bringing Aaron on, and I think he's going to be a great addition.
Right.
Any questions about that? That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Law. Not what changed. For the community's benefit, did we back away from the county prosecutor, or did the city step back, or did the county step back to cut ties with them?
Yeah, the county prosecutor, he chose not to renew the contract. I think he expressed some frustration with finding employees, finding attorneys to work in that office. It been a struggle. It was for us prior to our contract with the county.
Okay.
But he felt that it was time for us to manage that office. And so just coming back to the city, as I mentioned before, I feel really good about the person that we're hiring. He's got some good experience. And we even, the law director-elect and I took Mr. Bates to the municipal court, and he sat in on a couple of proceedings, and I think he has a real good feel of the issues that will come up. So we're really looking forward to it. So maybe we're just lucky. We were very positive in the search process. We did have one other person, or 2 other candidates that came and expressed some interest. So it was better than the prior search that the county prosecutor had.
And this must have been a nationwide search. You mentioned South Dakota. How did we reach out to South Dakota, or that's just where
That's where he was for 5 years prior to this past year. He has some family in the state of Ohio. He wanted to get closer to them. So he came in the last year to Ohio. He currently lives down in the Dayton area. But he had applied for admission to the state bar, or the licensing for the Supreme Court through a motion. He didn't have to take a test because he passed a test to become licensed in the state of South Dakota. So he's been here for about a year in the state of Ohio and has an active status to practice in the state of Ohio.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
City Administrator.
Yes, thank you. And I don't know if I've updated council on this, but as bringing on the prosecutor's office, we've made a few shifts here and there as far as the offices go. So one of which was that Ann Forrest has moved into an office that was used by the Weller Commission. So her offices are now located in that. Deb Reamer has moved into the office that Ann was previously in. And then the new prosecutors will take over the space that had been Deb Reamer's office, but previous to that had been where the prosecutor's office was. So I appreciate everyone's willingness to work with us. It's never an easy transition moving in office. I understand that. But we've been able to hopefully get them all ready to go. So as well as this gentleman, there is one administrative assistant who's coming over from the county back to the city's prosecutor's office, which Brendan kind of mentioned in his report previously. So we'll have space for them as well as computers and everything else that's necessary to function the office.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now under written communications.
Thank you. We have mayor's request for legislation number 21-51, legislation to approve income tax code revision.
Thank you. Mayor's request for legislation number 23-51 will be assigned to the Finance Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation number 23-52, legislation to approve the city's revised investment policy.
Mayor's request for legislation number 23-52 will also be assigned to the Finance Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation number 23-53, legislation to approve Tiffin's Fire Rescue Division's inclusion in the Black Swamp Emergency Services Unit.
Thank you. Mayor's request for legislation number 23-53 will be assigned to the Law and Community Planning Committee.
Mayor's request for legislation number 23-54, Ohio Urban Forestry Grant Program application.
Thank you. Mayor's request for legislation number 23-54. There was discussion during Committee of the Whole regarding this and a consensus for the law director to prepare legislation for this item by next meeting.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-40 to amend the 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate funds into the Streets Department budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-40 is prepared tonight as ordinance 23-87.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-41 to amend the 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate funds into the police budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-41 is prepared tonight as ordinance 23-88.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-43 to amend the 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate additional funds into the general budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation number 23-43 is prepared tonight as ordinance 23-89.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-44 to amend the 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate funds into the police and fire budgets.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F23-44 is prepared tonight as ordinance 23-90.
And that concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We are now under oral communications. Anyone wishing to address council may step to the podium, sign in, and direct their questions to myself. Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Lee Wilkinson, and as mayor-elect, one of my first responsibilities is to appoint people to various boards and commissions to make sure that they're fully staffed with the numbers of members that they need to have. So in an effort to do that, I've been contacting the current members to ask if they would like to continue to serve. But at this time, I have 2 vacancies that I know I'm going to have to fill, and one would be in the Civil Service Commission, and the second would be the Sewer Review Board. So I would be accepting letters of interest for those 2 vacancies, and anyone can send a letter of interest to the city building here at 51 East Market Street, because currently my official email is not activated. But as soon as it is, then I'll let you know what that is so people can send applications there.
Thank you.
Questions about that? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address council this evening? Okay, thank you. We are now under motions. Any motions this evening? We are now under resolutions and ordinances.
We have no resolutions.
Thank you.
Pass on to ordinances. Ordinance number 23-72, introduced by Daniel Perry. Ordinance enacting Chapter 343 of Tiffin Codified Ordinances, allowing and regulating underspeed and utility vehicle use within the city of Tiffin and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 23-72.
Ordinance number 23-77, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to accept a permanent easement from AFLP 1150 Mall Road LLC or current property owner at 1150 Mall Road in Tiffin for storm sewer purposes.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 23-77.
Ordinance number 23-79, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker. Ordinance authorizing city administrator to prepare plans and specifications, advertise for and receive bids, and recommend and execute a contract for the 2024 street paving program and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 23-79.
Ordinance number 23-81, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker. Ordinance authorizing and directing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with a professional design firm for engineering and design services for the replacement of a culvert on South Sandusky Street.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 23-81.
Ordinance number 23-82, introduced by Cheyenne Thacker. Ordinance authorizing and directing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with a professional design firm for the preparation of a safety study for the West Market Street corridor between US 224 and Hopewell Avenue.
Thank you. This is the second reading of ordinance 23-82.
Ordinance number 23-87, introduced by Kevin Reesner. Ordinance amending 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate $5,376.40 into the street department budget, which is an insurance reimbursement for property damage.
This is the first reading of ordinance 23-87. Councilmember Reesner.
I move for immediate passage of ordinance 23-87, suspending city council's three reading rule.
Thank you. There is a motion for suspension of council's three reading rule and passage of ordinance 23-87. Is there a second? Councilmember Mansour.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Perry.
Yeah, just for the public's benefit, if we could get a explanation. And Kathy, you did it so well in the committee of the hall. I know you're hoping I'd do it, but
Sure, this is for a reimbursement that the street department, they had to pay for, I think it was a pole that was damaged for an accident, and that was an unforeseen expense that had to be paid out of the budget, so they would like that reimbursed so that they can pay for other things that they needed.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other discussion? Okay, we will first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Ordinance 23-87 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 23-88, introduced by Kevin Reesner. Ordinance amending 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate $450 into the police budget for safety and training purposes.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 23-88. Councilmember Reesner.
This is for training that got canceled. They're getting a refund, and I move for immediate passage of ordinance 23-88, suspending city council's three reading rule.
Thank you. There's a motion for suspension of council's three reading rule and passage of ordinance 23-88. Is there a second? Councilmember Wilkins.
Second that motion.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Ordinance 23-88 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 23-89, introduced by Kevin Reesner. Ordinance amending 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to appropriate $160,000 into the general fund budget, which is needed for income tax transfers for the rest of the year.
Thank you. This is the first reading of ordinance 23-89. Councilmember Reesner.
This is an expense transfer so that the finance department doesn't run short between accounts 215 and 331. I move for immediate passage of ordinance 23-89, suspending city council's three reading rule.
Thank you. There is a motion for suspension of council's three reading rule and passage of ordinance 23-89. Is there a second? Councilmember Spar.
Yes, I'll second, Madam President.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we'll first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 23-89 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 23-90, introduced by Kevin Reesner. Ordinance amending 2023 Budget Ordinance 22-108 to revise an appropriation of $236,000 in the Police and Fire Department budgets for grants received from the Ohio Emergency Management Agency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 23-90. Councilmember Reesner.
I move for immediate passage of ordinance 23-90, suspending city council's three reading rule.
There is a motion for suspension of council's three reading rule and passage of ordinance 23-90. Is there a second? Councilmember Mansour.
I'll second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Jones.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a first reading and for, I keep saying, the public's benefit, and I guess I heard in the committee of the whole, but this is grant money that was appropriated by our ordinance 23-83. So it's grant money coming to us, and
Anything to add, Kathy?
Yeah, so we're reallocating this. You put it in the budget once before. I got new information from Ohio EMA on how we're supposed to take care of those payments and how we're supposed to actually do it, which actually changed the allocation back to the way I originally had it with a little bit of cents here and there was moved a little bit, but we need to move it back to how it was.
it would be these 6 line items that we have in front of us. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll first vote on the suspension.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilmember Spar.
Yes.
Thacker.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Mansour.
Yes.
Perry.
Yes.
And Reesner.
Yes.
Ordinance 23-90 passes with a vote of 7-0.
And that concludes.
Thank you. We are now under other business. Councilmember Mansour.
I'd like to announce a law and community planning meeting on November 27th at 5:15 PM in council chambers to discuss mayor's request for legislation 23-53.
And any other business?
And any other business. Sorry, I always forget that.
Thank you. Councilmember Reesner.
And I'd like to announce a finance committee meeting to be held in council chambers November 27th, Monday, 5:30 PM, to discuss mayor's request for legislation 23-51 and 52. And any other business that comes before the committee.
Awesome. Thank you. Councilmember Thacker.
I just heard about a really great program, and I haven't heard a lot of people mention it. The OSS is hosting a pumpkin composting at our local fairgrounds. And so during the month of November, you can take any pumpkins that you don't want to grow in your yard and your squirrels to eat. You can take them out to OSS. They have a dumpster, a bin, and they're composting all of those. So it's a really great program. Might as well take advantage of it.
Councilmember Spar.
That bin is right inside the entrance to the right. You can't miss it. It's a 20-yard dumpster.
Thank you. Awesome. Any other business to come before council this evening? Yes, Mayor.
So if they compost it, does that mean you'll get pumpkins if you go putting in your compost and?
I can confirm that you will. Accidental pumpkins.
I know they're working with a company called Go Zero, who takes it to, I think it's in somewhere in northwest Ohio. I want to say Wauseon is where I could be wrong, but they take the compost to this farm that does, large composting. Other city programs work with them too.
It could be Wauseon.
Great. Any other questions on the pumpkins? Okay.
Kind of interesting.
No, that is.
Are they big pumpkins or small? Just kidding.
Kind you have.
Bringing a pumpkin. Okay, any other business to come before council? All right, we can adjourn. Thank you, guys, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Cheyenne, I can't believe you didn't give a report tonight.
I know, I almost said
I was waiting.
That's what I looked at her. She looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, oh.